Hello guys, and welcome to day 11 of this full stack hospital management system. So in our last video, or day 10, we looked at how we could build these tables here or schema for our database, and also we looked at how we can do queries, more so the store procedures in database, that is in Mssql. And then I took a break because I wasn't feeling well, but now I'm right back and we will continue with our project until we finish it. So guys, we are far away and we need to get to the end of this project, so let's continue today as day 11. So in today's video we'll be looking at the user validation, how we can validate the user input like the login. We can validate the email and then the password. And to validate is one of the important things that you can do in your application, because you want the data that is going to the database or to be saved in database to be correct and to be sanitized so that you get the data that is valid. So today we'll start by adding the validation, and then we start the authentication functions or the logic for user sign up and user sign in. So without much ado, I don't have any other thing to add, so let's get into the tutorial. So guys, when we want to validate our user input data, now we can use several methods, but in our scenario here, we'll be using a package called Joy, and Joy will help us to build a schema and an object that will help us to validate our user input. And we'll be using this one to validate the data when the user is registering and also when the user is signing in, so that we can get the correct email or the email that is valid and the password that we want valid. So what we can do now, let's go in our browser here and let's type for Joy, and we'll do Joy npm just like that. So let's look at this package here because it is very crucial and it is very important. It makes our work easier for validation, and you can come here and read more about Joy here. So this is Joy. You can read how powerful it is in order to on how to validate with it. So as here the documentation, they have said that Joy is the most powerful schema description language and data validator for JavaScript, and that's what I'm going to show you, how to validate the data using the Joy. So the first thing that you should do is to install this Joy, and to install you should click on this here and copy. So come here in your terminal and maybe paste this, and before I forget, before it installs, you can see here I'm running this tsc-w in order to watch and compile our TypeScript to JavaScript, like we have done in other videos. And here you can see our server is running. So let's see if the Joy has finished installing. So if you come here, then you can see it is already installing. Okay, let it install. It is a very small package, so it shouldn't take a lot of time. So it has already installed. So the first thing that we need to do, if you remember, we need to add another file here in our helpers, because we said that whatever we do in this folder here that is called helpers is what will repeat in our program, or a function or something that will reuse most of the time, because we want to avoid the repetition. So now what we'll do, we just create here user validation. So let's do that. So create here a file called user validation, just like that, and then we say ts, just like that. So that's a file that we have created, and now we can start coding here, and I will show you how to use Joy. So the first thing in order to use Joy is to import, of course. So we just import Joy, and we import from Joy package, and it should autocomplete for us because it has already installed. You can see it is auto-completing for us. And you can see here, even if we are using TypeScript, Joy is not requiring types, so that it is not, that's why it is not giving us errors, because it doesn't require the types to be installed, not like the other packages that we saw that they should need to we should install the types because we are using TypeScript. So the other thing is that we need to build a schema. So the first schema that we need to build here is one for the registering, and this is for registering the user. So what we'll do, we create a function, a schema that is, and we'll export it, of course. So export this const is like a function, but is a schema also. So register, we call it register user or register schema, let's call it that way. And then to use Joey now to validate, we should now include Joey and then say object, just like that. So just like that. And then the other thing is now to add the object here. And the first thing that we need to validate now, because here in object, now you need to add whatever you want to validate. So the first thing that we need to validate is the name, because we're getting the name from the user when the user is registering. And we say Joey and dot string, because we are validating, it should be a string, and then it should be required, just like that. So required, and then the other thing is the minimum that you want. You can include minimum. Let's add like 5, so that if the user doesn't include 5 characters here, it should not allow that user to add or to register. So that's one. And then you can add other validation. It's not like you only need to add these validations, you can add others. Like this means that this validation is a string, and also it is required, and the minimum character that we want here from the name is 5. So the other thing is email. So email here. So we'll say Joey dot string, of course, and this time now, because there's a way Joey can validate email, just call our email function. And again, the other thing is you can call exist, it should exist. And the other thing now, it is required, just like that. You can channel multiple validation, and you can see how Joey is important. So the other thing is email or password, that is password, sorry for that. So we have password, and now already now you can guess what the Joey will require, or what we need to validate in our password here. So the first thing that we need to do is, of course, it is a Joey and dot string. And now here you need include like the minimum characters that you need from the password. And you can say, okay, let me start by required, and now we can include the minimum to, let's say it is 5, so like that. Now so we can have this as our schema here. And not only you can validate the data for registering and signing in, you can validate other data. Like for example, if you want to validate the data when the admission is being done, or is a patient to be admitted, you can also validate the data for the patient. You can validate everything that you want, not only this for registering. But for now, I will just show you this validation with registering and signing in, and that's when now you will learn to validate others. You can validate others using the same logic. So the other thing is we can create an export here, a const, a function that a schema that is, it's not a function. And this time we'll call this let's call this a login schema. That one will be okay. So let's say login schema here, and we will just say joey.object. Now I know you know what to expect here. Just call that function for the object, and then we add the object inside here. But now when the user will be registering, we only require the email and the password, because when this user is registering, already now we are requiring the name and the email and the password. But when the user is logging in or signing in, yeah, we only require email and the password in order to allow that user to log in. Okay, so now this one will have an email, and actually to just have a very short or now to avoid doing a lot of work, let us copy this because it's the same thing. And then now password also we can click on this, and actually I feel like this minimum should be 8 because that's one is what we see in most applications. So let's copy this and add it down here. So just like that. So we have a validation now. We have these two schemas here that are done very good, and I will show you how to use them when we are signing in and when we are registering. So the other thing that now we need to do is that we need to now use another script that I use most of the time because I don't want a repetition. So to use this script, okay, this is the script that I use most of the time, and this will help us now to create a connection and then to make a query, that is, because I don't want to repeat using the queries. This is a script that I have found online and you can use it too, and I have customized, and now I can use it on my project. So let me copy first of all everything and I will explain what it does. So now let's come here in our helpers because we'll be reusing this here, that file, that connection. So let's call it database. We can call it database connection, or we can call just database just like that. So let me paste everything inside here, and the first thing that you can see here, it needs we need to install this, or we need to install types, you can see, because we already installed the package for Mssql. So now you can see here it is already showing us what we need to install, and these are the types for this Mssql package. So first of all, copy this here. So we are copying it like that, and then in here in our terminal, just copy it and paste it here, and then hit enter. So let it install. So the other thing that you can see here, we are importing this one file here that is helping us to connect with our database, because our database is running in our local machine. But if you are deploying this application, you would have that database installed in that server that we are deploying this application. So this is the Mssql, this is the file, and you can see it here, this config file here, and we talked about this in a previous video. So that's all. Now inside here, now you can see we can come here and we can create this class here for connection, and now we'll be using this class to instantiate and use it to make queries in our database. And remember, we are using store procedures, and I will show you how to use this file here to do those store procedure. It's not only for Mssql, you can look for such files like for MySQL and Postgres, but this time you can see this file here. The first thing that it does is to initialize this pool, because in order to create a request or to query, you need this pool, that is connection pool. In using this Mssql, you need to create this pool here. So you can see here we have initialized this pool here, and then we have called this method here called get connection, and you can see get connection is down here, and now we are getting this pool, we are returning this pool after now we have connected. So you can see you can do this Mssql and connect, and then give it the file that it needs the data in order to connect. Remember that file is this one here. So you need to do Mssql and then connect, give that file that we have here with everything that it needs, and then now we have this. Because remember, if we have not done this, it means that we could only doing like every time we could, when we want to make a request, we need to connect. So in every like logic here, we could have be doing that. Here we could connect to our Mssql. Here we do the same. So now that's why we need to have this file here that will be connecting once, and then we can use it to do other things. So and then it is returning our pool here. You can see now to create a request or queries, that is, you can see what we have included here. This is a method, and you can see this one has a sync, meaning it require this pool will be returned in future, but this one will be made instantly, and that's why you can see we don't have a sync here. So this one will make a request also here, and then it will get data here. So you can see it is being used somewhere here to create a request. So this one is the function that we'll be using now here inside here. So because this one now we require our stop procedure name, and then it will require the other argument or the input or the data that we require in that stop procedure in order to continue. But you will understand as we are going through this project, and as we build more project, we'll understand what I'm telling you. And now the other thing is that we have this method that is called, we call this query here. So now you can go through this file here, and I know it's difficult to understand because even myself, I had a lot of time understanding this for a file here, but we need to have a way to program and to make our application efficient and to program like pros. So that's all that I wanted to include here. So now, in order to use this here, this connection, this file here, what we'll do, like for example, I just want to give you some an example. You need to come here, like let's say we are doing here in creating appointment here. What we'll do, let me first of all delete this. What we'll do, first of all, the first thing that we need to do, because I know here we need to save our data for appointment in our database. So what will happen, we need now to import first of all connection. So we'll just import connection, and you can see it is already auto-completing for us because we have exported that class. So it's the same way like that. And then now what we can do, we can initialize, we can create an instance. So what we'll say const db, and then let's call this db, and then we can say new, and then we can say connection, just like that. And now in here, what we can do, because we have created an instance of this, you already know that when you have class, you can initialize it in order to use now the methods and the properties in the class. So now, if we want to create an appointment, we need the data from our front end. So what we can do, we just assume, because I'm showing you why we need that connection file. So what we need to do, we'll have like this one here, and we just say, okay, so we just say request.body. So from request.body, we require like other, okay, we need data here, and let's assume we'll have a name for the doctor. So name for the doctor, email for the doctor, something of the sort. So now what we need to do is that before we save, we need now to do like db, and you can see it is giving that our exec here function. And now here we can first of all call the stop procedure name. You can see here. So stop procedure, I think we called it create appointment or add appointment, if I remember, but it doesn't matter because I'm just showing you. So we just come here when we reach here in our creating appointment. And then the other thing is that now we can just specify the other argument now, like the name of the doctor, and then the email doctor, and the other thing is there's no other thing. So that's what we will do. You can see how fast it is, and here we require like something like a wait, because this will be just return or will be done in the future. So here we include also async, something of the sort. You can see how easy it is, and that's why I'm telling you that we need this connection file here that we have added here in our helpers folder, and I'll just be pushing this code into GitHub so you can go through it, try to understand. And if you're not really understanding everything, you can just ask me in the comment section, or you can comment you have understood or you haven't understood the connection. I can repeat in the next lecture. So the other thing is or the next video, that is. So in the next, okay, what we need now to do is to start working on the logic for signing in and signing up. So let me first of all remove this. We just come here when we'll be working on the appointment logic. So inside here, we need to come here in users, because here is where we have that we need to have this function or functionality for login and registering. And for now, we start by signing up. So what we need to do now, remember, first thing, because we need to save this user that is registering in our database, remember we need a connection file here that will help us to create a connection. So we need this connection file here. The other thing is that now we can start working from here now. So the first thing also, we will require a bycrypt, because we need to encrypt our password in order to save it in our database. So first thing, let's go in our browser here and look for bycrypt. I think it is called this bycrypt here. You can see it is here. This one will help us to hash our password before we store in our database for security purposes. Because when we are handling password, you need to save it as hashed, because you don't need to save that password in a plain text, that is. So let us see the package. So the first thing that we need to do is to just copy this here. So I won't go through the documentation part, but you can just come and look how you can use bycrypt, or rather you can just continue coding this application, and I'm sure you'll understand. So the first thing that you need to do here is to come here in your terminal, and then you can just copy this here and paste. So let it install the bycrypt, and then we can continue in our project here. So the first thing that we need to do now is that we need also to have to initialize our this connect. We need to create an instance for this connection here. So what we need to do, we just say const db, and we can say new connection here. As an instance, we are just initializing or instantiating our class here that is coming from helpers.database. That's why I was telling you that it will help us to not repeat when we are making a request. We just use this data here. So now the other thing is that we need now to start working here in our signing up. And remember, the first thing that we need to do is to have the data from our user when the user is registering. So what we do, just say const here, const here. I don't know why it is my keyboard is not working properly. So now inside here we require some data, and this one will be coming from request.body. This one will be getting from our front end here. So we need to have a name, an email, and password from our user, just like that. This one is password. My keyboard is misbehaving. So the other thing now is to try first of all to save the data, or to just do something, or we need to start by first of all validating our information here. Remember, here we have created our schema for validating the data for registering. So that's what the first thing that we need to do. So in here, first of all, we'll do const here, and we need two data here. But first of all, let me show you how to use the validation that will help us to get those two data, or an error and data. So first thing we'll do, schema here, register schema, and register schema, we should give it request.body. Remember, this is the data, or the data that is in here, and you can see here it is schema, register schema dot validate. It's not just like schema only, register schema. So when we give it this request.body, we need to require two things. Either it will return us an error if the data is not meeting our validation criteria, or we can have data, meaning now it has been registered correctly. So inside here now, or this one is not error, it is value. Actually, I forgot that. So this is an error or value. So when we are giving this, our schema here, we are giving this register schema the request.body, which will have name, email, and password. It should return either an error or a value. And if it is correct and it has validated correctly, or it has passed our validation, we should have a value, and value include this data here, name, email, and password. So the other thing is now is to see if we have the error, because if we have error, we need to notify the user. So if error here, what we should know now is to return a message. So we just say status dot, this one is coming from our backend, and just say status 400 here, and we just say JSON. And now here we can say something like, okay, we can just give any message. Okay, so something like we can say message, or we can say your data is not meeting validation criteria, just like that. Or what we can do is that we can get the error from our database, from our validation here, because this is an error, and we can extract information from it and then show to the user. So what we can do now, we can say error as a message. Actually now here it's an object, so need to add that. So it is an error, and then we can call details, and because details will be an array, we should access the first element, and then we can say message. That is, this will give our user the message, a correct message, because now this error will contain what has happened and what is wrong, what went wrong in the validation. Maybe it will say the password should have 8 characters or something like that. So let me format first of all. So let is format, and then to remove some extra spaces. Now if we don't have now the error, the other thing, so we can continue. So to continue, now we need to hash our password. So the first thing that we need to do here is to import Bytecrypt. Bytecrypt here. If you remember, we have our Bytecrypt, and it is from Bytecrypt here. So just like that, and you can see now a Bytecrypt here, it is giving us some error, and this is because it needs some types to install types, and you can just hover over it and then copy everything inside here like that. So let's copy everything, copy it just like that, and then copy. And now in here, in our terminal here, we can just copy and paste that command there, so that it can install the types. It is a very small package. Types are very small packages, so it will install, and then the error will be gone. So now we need to hash our password, and to hash our password, we need to get the hashed password first of all. So we have hashed password just like that, and then to hash our password, we just say Bytecrypt. Bytecrypt, we need to have our Bytecrypt here, Bytecrypt. And the other thing that we need to do, first of all, we need to have something like async, because it will do this, it will get our hash password in future. So the other thing that we need to do here is to await, and now we can say bycrypt dot, and then you can see we have all this information here. You can compare and compare, you can compare to hashed password. So the first thing that you need to do is to hash, and now inside here you need to include what you need to just hash. So in our case we need to hash our password. So we need to hash our password, and then you can indicate how many rounds of that you need to add, or how many times you want to hash. For default is 10, so we just leave it as 10, just like that. And you can go in the documentation for bycrypt and you can learn more about these rounds here. So now we have our hashed password. So the other thing now is to save our user in our database. So now remember, now we can use this db here instance and then create that, or now we can just save that user to our database. So what we'll do now is to await, first of all, because it will happen in the future, .exec, just like that. And then we need to give it a procedure name, store procedure name. So we can come here in our documentation for our database, and then we see what we call that the store procedures for signing in the user or signing up the user. So we can come here in our database and look for store procedure. We can look for users, because in users, that's where we we indicated or we documented the store procedure for signing up the user. So you can see here we have our store procedure, and we call that store procedure signing up. So let's copy this, and you can see this store procedure will require name, email, and password. So that will be the argument. So come here, and now inside here we can add these quotation marks and add the signing up, because you need to give it as a string. And then now we can give the other data. So the data will be name, or the argument that is can have email. And I'm doing this way because this will go like an object. So in this modern JavaScript, you should not write like this, or it is not a must you write like this, but we can write it like this. So now you need to have, like, you can have this way, but to minimize, okay, it is here, it is email, sorry for that. So now you don't need to do like this in modern JavaScript. If the name, if the value and the key of the object is the same, you can just write the name of the key, and it will include even the value. So you need an email here, and also we need password. But remember now, because we need to save here the hashed password, and this password here key will not be it will not be equal to hashed password. We just need to add hashed password here, because we need to include this hashed password, because if we go with with password, then it will save this password that it is not encrypted. So now we can do this one. Now we have done that one here, so we have saved our user. So the other thing now we can do is to send this information or a message telling them if they have registered correctly. And it is not a must, but I feel it is important. So we have rest of status, and then we can give it 201, meaning a status code of 201, meaning that the user has been created. And then you can say JSON, and again now here you can add a message and say this time user or registered here, registered successfully, just like that. So now that's what we needed to do in our sign up here. And again, inside here now, we can just, if there were error that were caught, now what we need to do is that we can add this here. We can send that message or that error. So we can say s.status, and then we can give 500 because this one can be coming from server. And then inside here we can say something like, you can add anything that you feel like it is correct. But in our case here, we just write something went wrong, just like that. Something went wrong. So that's all that I wanted to add there. So we now need to go to signing in, but I feel like this video will be too long if we go into our signing in, and I just want to give it time for the signing in. So I'll just end here the tutorial, and then we just need to go and start working on signing in our next video. So at least for today, we have looked at user validation and how to sign up the user, and also how to create a connection, or how to use this connection here, this connection file that will help us to just make the request or the queries to our database. So that's all that I wanted to show you here in this video. We'll continue in signing in the user in the next video or the tutorial. So now what I will request for you is to go through this file here, and now because it has given me a lot of headache when I was trying to get everything, what it help us or what it will help us, just go through it and see if you can understand as a challenge. But I'll be including the GitHub link to this code in the description part of this video, so that you can just go and play with it and understand everything. So guys, I just end here, so that tomorrow on the next video we just have enough time to discuss on signing in, and also this creating middlewares here, so that we go slowly but sure. So that's all. Tomorrow is signing in, and then we create the middleware here. Just show you, and I will explain what middleware are, and also I'll be explaining again what this or what signing in will look like, or how it will work. So that's all. See you in the next video. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also if you haven't liked this video, kindly like and comment. So thank you all. Have a great day.